Sridharaya Namaha, Vrushi Yuga, returning to their own lokas. Nama Bhagavato Niryanam Paramotsukaha Gayantascha Grantascha Vibhutiratmano Vibhuhu Atmani Chatmanaha Sayojatmani Chatmanam Padmanetrendra Meliyat. Seeing before him Brahma, grandfather of the universe, along with the other gods, who are all his personal and powerful expansions, the Almighty Lord Krishna closed his lotus eyes, fixing his mind within himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Seeing before him Brahma, the grandfather of the universe, along with the other gods, who are all his personal and powerful expansions, the Lord Brahma closed his lotus eyes, fixing his mind within himself, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu. According to Srila Sridhara Swami, the Lord to descend within this universe for the protection of his universe, servants, the demi under the gods. Now the other gods arrived before the Lord, each one desiring to take the Lord to his own planet. To avoid these innumerable social obligations, the Lord closed his eyes as if absorbed in samadhi. Srila Jiva Goswami adds that Lord Krishna closed his eyes to instruct the yogis how to leave this mortal world without attachment to one's mystic opulences. All the gods, including Brahma, are mystic expansions of Lord Krishna, and yet the Lord closed his eyes to emphasize that one should fix one's mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead when departing from this world. Lokabhiramam Satanam Dharanadhyana Mangalam Yogadharana Yagneya Bhagva Dhama Vitsutam Bhagva Dhama Vishatswakam. Without employing the mystic Agni meditation to burn up his transcendental body, which is the all-attractive resting place of all the worlds and the object of all contemplation and meditation, Lord Krishna entered into his own abode of Vaikunta Loka. A yogi empowered to select the moment of leaving his body can cause it to burst into flames by engaging the yogic meditation called Agneya, and thus he passes into his next life. The other gods similarly employ this mystic fire when being transferred to the spiritual world, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead is completely different from conditioned souls like yogis and other gods. Since the Lord's eternal spiritual body is the source of all existence, as indicated here by the words Lokabhiramam Swatanam, Lord Krishna's body is the source of pleasure for the entire universe. The word Dharana Dhyana Mangalam indicates that those trying for spiritual elevation through meditation and yoga achieve all auspiciousness through meditation on the Lord's body. Since yogis are liberated simply by thinking of Lord Krishna's body, that body is certainly not material and therefore not subject to burning by mundane mystic fire or any other type of fire. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur reminds us of Lord Krishna's statement in the 11th canto, chapter 14, verse 37, Vagni Madhye Smer Rupam Mamatahid Dhyana Mangalam. Within the fire, one should meditate upon my form, which is the auspicious object of all meditation. Since Lord Krishna, transcendental form, is present within the fire as maintaining principle, how can fire affect the form? Thus, although the Lord appeared to enter the mystic yoga trance, the word Adgadva indicates that the Lord, since his body is purely spiritual, bypassed the formality of burning and directly entered his own abode in the spiritual sky. This point has also been elaborately explained by Srila Jiva Goswami in his commentary to this verse. Dividundibiyo neduhu petuhu sumanasaschakat satyam dharmo dudibhube kirti chanutam yamu. As soon as the Lord Sri Krishna left the earth, truth, religion, faithfulness, glory, and beauty immediately followed him. Kettle drums resounded in the heavens, and flowers showered from the sky on Lord Krishna. According to Srila Sridhara Swamiji, all the other gods were jubilant because each one thought Lord Krishna was coming to his own planet. Devadayo Brahma Mukhyana Vishantam Sudamani Abhijnata Gatim Krishnam Dudrushasta Tivismita. Many of the other gods and other higher beings led by Brahma could not see Lord Krishna as he was entering his own abode, since he did not reveal his movements. But some of them did catch sight of him, and they were extremely amazed. Saudamanyayata kashe yantya hitva brahmandalam gatirna lakshate martestata krishnasya devatai. Just as ordinary men cannot ascertain the path of a lightning bolt as it leaves a cloud, the other gods could not trace out the movements of Lord Krishna as he returned to his abode Vaikunta. The sudden movements of lightning bolt are seen by other gods, but not by human beings. Similarly, the sudden departure of Lord Krishna could be understood by the Lord's intimate associates in the spiritual sky, but not by the other gods. Brahmarudradayaste tu drishtva yogagatim hare vismitanstam prashamsantam swam swam lokam yustada. Swam swam lokam yustada. A few of the other gods, however, notably Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, could ascertain how the Lord's mystic power was working, and thus they became astonished. All the other gods praised the Lord's mystic power and then returned to their own planets. All the other gods were virtually omniscient within this universe. They could not understand the movements of Lord Krishna's mystic potency, thus they were astonished. Rajan parasya tanubrajan jasmaspyesha Rajan parasya tanubrajana napyesha Maya vidambaname mahita tatasya Srishtvatmane danamadishya Purikyanta chante Samrutya jatma mahimoparatasasde. My dear king, you should understand that Shuka Maharshi is telling Parikshit Raja, my dear king, you should understand that the Supreme Lord's appearance and disappearance, which resemble those of embodied conditioned souls, are actually a show enacted by his illusory energy, just like the performance of an actor. After creating this universe, he enters into it. After creating this universe, he enters into it, plays within it for some time, and at last winds it up. Then the Lord remains situated in his own transcendental glory, in his own Vaikunta, having ceased from the functions of the cosmic manifestation. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the so-called fight among the members of the Yadu dynasty was actually a display of the pastime potency of the Lord Krishna. Since Lord Krishna's personal associates are never subject to ordinary birth and death like conditioned souls. This being the case, certainly the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is transcendental to material birth and death, as clearly stated in this verse. The word natasya of an actor or a magician is significant here. Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur tells the following story of a certain magician who exhibits the trick of dying. In front of the great king, a magician approaches a stack of valuable garments, jewels, coins, and so forth, all placed there by the king. Taking a jeweled necklace, the magician tells the king, now I am taking this necklace, and you can't have it. And he makes the necklace disappear. Now I am taking this gold coin, and you can't have it. He says, and this gold coin also disappears. Next, challenging the king in the way, the magician makes 7,000 horses disappear. Then the magician creates the illusion that the king's children, grandchildren, brothers, and other family members have attacked each other, and that nearly all are dead from the violent quarrel. The king hears the magician speaking and at the same time observes these things taking place along before him as he sits in the great assembly hall. Then the magician says, "O king, I no longer wish to live. Just as I have studied magic, so also by the mercy of the lotus feet of my guru, I have learned the mystic meditation of yoga, and one is supposed to give up one's body while meditating in a holy place. And since you have performed so many pious activities, you are a holy place yourself. Therefore, I shall now give up my body." Thus speaking, the magician sits down in the proper yoga posture, fixes himself in pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi, and becomes silent. A moment later, fire generated from his trance blazes forth out of his body and burns into ashes. Then all the wives of the magician, distraught with lamentation, enter into that fire. 3 or 4 days later, after the magician has returned to his own province, he sends one of his daughters to the king. The daughter tells him, "O king, I have just come to your place. I just come to your palace, bringing along with me invisibly all your sons, grandsons, brothers, and good health, along with all the jewels and other items given by you. Please, therefore, give me whatever you consider fitting remuneration for the wisdom of the magic that has been exhibited before you. In this way, even by ordinary magic, one can simulate birth and death. It is not difficult to understand, therefore, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Krishna, although transcendental to the laws of nature, exhibits his illusory potency, so that ordinary fools will think the Lord has left his body like a human being. Actually, Lord Krishna returned to his abode in his own eternal body, as confirmed through the Vedic literature. Actually, Lord Krishna returned to his abode Vaikunta in his own eternal body, as confirmed throughout the Vedic literature. Martyenaya Gurusutam Yamalokanitam Tvam Chanayat Charanadam Paramastra Jigyenta Gamamita Pita Masamanishaha Kim Swavane Swaranna Yenna Gayam Sadeham. Lord Krishna brought the son of his guru back from the planet of the Lord of the death in the boy's self-same body. And as the ultimate giver of protection, he saved you also when you were burned by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. He conquered in battle even Lord Shiva, who deals death to the agents of death. And he sent the hunger Jara directly to Vaikunta in his own human body. How could such a personality be unable to protect his own self? Lord Krishna brought the son of his guru back from the planet of the Lord Yama in the boy's self-same body. And as the ultimate giver of protection, he saved you, that is Parikshit Maharaja. He saved you also when you were burned by the Brahmastra of Ashwatthama. He conquered in battle even Lord Shiva, who deals death to the agents of death. And he sent the hunter Jara directly to Vaikunta in his own body. How could such a personality be unable to protect his own self? To mitigate his own and Parikshit Maharaja's distress at the narration of Lord Krishna's departure from this world, Shukra Maharshi here gives several clear examples proving that Lord Krishna is far beyond the influence of the death. Although the son of Lord Krishna's spiritual master Sandipani Muni, Lord Krishna's spiritual master Sandipani Muni had been taken by a death, the Lord brought him back in his same body. Similarly, the power of Brahman cannot touch Lord Krishna, since the Parikshit Maharaja, though burned by the Brahmastra weapon, was easily saved by the Lord. Lord Shiva was clearly defeated by Lord Krishna in the battle with Panasura, and the hunter Jara was sent to Vaikunta planet in his own human body. Death is an insignificant expansion of Lord Krishna's external potency and cannot possibly be acted upon the Lord himself. Those who actually understand the transcendental nature of Lord Krishna's activities will find convincing evidence in these examples. Although Lord Krishna, being the possessor of infinite powers, is the only cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of innumerable living beings, he simply did not desire to keep his body in this world any longer. Thus, he revealed the destination of those fixed in self and demonstrated that this mortal world is of no intrinsic value. Although Lord Krishna descended to this world to save the fallen souls, he did not want to encourage people in the future to loiter here unnecessarily. In other words, as soon as possible, one should perfect one's Krishna consciousness and go back home, back to Godhead. If Lord Krishna has remained longer on the earth, he could have unnecessarily increased the prestige of the material world. As stated by Sri Uddhava in Srimad Bhagavatam, Adayantara adad yastu swa bimbam loka lokanam. Lord Sri Krishna, who manifested his eternal form before the vision of all on the earth, performed his disappearance by removing his form from the sight of those who are unable to see him. He is due to not executing the required penance. Uddhava also states in the Bhagavatam, Devasya mayasya spurishtaha Kåñëa chanyad asad astritaha brahmyate dharna tad vakyar atmani upatmana haruhu. Under no circumstances can the words of persons bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord deviate the intelligence of those who are completely surrounded by souls. One who follows the Vaishnava authorities in this attempt to understand Lord Krishna's transcendental disappearance easily appreciates that the Lord is the omnipotent personality of Godhead and that his spiritual body is identical with his eternal spiritual potential. Yayetam praturuttaya Krishnasya padamim param prayata kirtiyet bhaktya tame vapnotturmuttamam tame vapnotyunuttamam. Anyone who regularly rises early in the morning and carefully chants with devotion the glories of Lord Krishna's transcendental disappearance and his return to his own abode will certainly achieve that same supreme destination. This is very interesting. All the devotees can understand. Anyone who regularly rises early in the morning and carefully chants with devotion the glories of Lord Sri Krishna, transcendental disappearance back to Vaikunta, and his return to his own Dhamma, to his own abode, will certainly achieve that same supreme destination. As soon as Dvärakä reached Dvärakä Nagari, he threw himself at the feet of Vasudeva and Ugrasena and drenched their feet with his tears, lamenting the loss of Lord Krishna. Katayamasa nidanam vrishtina ankutsasho nrupaha tvachutrognihdaya jana shoka vimorchitaha. Tatra sma turita jagmam Krishna vishlesha vikvala vaisavasherate yatta jnata yogan nanta ananam. Dvärakä delivered the account of the total destruction of the Vaishnavas, and upon hearing this, O Parikshit, the people became deeply distraught in their hearts and stunned with sorrow. Feeling the overwhelming pain of separation from Krishna, they struck their own faces while hurrying to the place where their relatives lay dead. Devaki Rohini Chaiva Vasudevastata Sutau Krishna Rama Pashyantaha Shokarta Viju Smritim. When Devaki, Rohini, and Vasudeva could not find their sons Krishna and Balarama, they lost consciousness out of anguish. According to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakura, the original Devaki, Rohini, and other ladies of Dvärakä actually remained in Dvärakä, invisible to the eyes of the material world. whereas the other gods who represented partial aspects of Devaki, Rohini, and so on went to Prabhasa Kshetra to see their dead relatives. Pranascha vijahustutra bhagavadvirahaturaha upagagya pratinstata chita maruruho striyaha. Tormented by separation from the Lord, his parents give up their lives at that very spot. My dear Parikshit, the wives of the Yadavas then climbed into the funeral pyres, embracing their dead husbands. Tormented by separation from the Lord, Vasudeva, Devaki, and Rohini, his parents, give up their lives at that very spot. My dear Parikshit, the wives of the Yadavas then climbed onto the funeral pyres, embracing their dead husbands. Ramapatnyascha Twadeva Mupamagmuhagne Mavishan Vasudeva Patna Sudghata Vasudeva Patva Stadgatram Pradyumna Dinare Smushna Krishna Patnyo Mini Vishanegnim Rukminyadva Sadatmikaha. The wives of Lord Balrama has entered the fire and embraced his body, and Vasudeva's wives entered his fire and embraced his body. The daughters-in-laws of Lord Hari entered the funeral pyres of their respective husbands, headed by Pradyumna and Rukmini, and other wives of Lord Krishna, whose hearts were completely absorbed in him, entered his fire. It is understood that the anguished scene described here is a display of Lord's illusory potency. Adding a final dramatic note to the Lord Krishna's pastimes on the earth, in reality, the Lord Krishna returned to his eternal abode, Vaikunta, in his original body, and his eternal associates returned with him. This final heartbreaking scene of the Lord's pastimes is a creation of the Lord's internal potency that brings the Lord's manifest pastimes to a perfect dramatic end. Shloka number 21. Arjuna preyasaha sakyuhu krishnasya viraha turaha atmanam swantaya masa krishna gita saduktibihi. Krishna gita saduktibihi. Arjuna felt great distress over separation from Lord Krishna. Arjuna felt great distress over separation from Lord Krishna, his dearmost friend, but he consoled himself by remembering the transcendental words the Lord Krishna had sung to him. Arjuna felt great distress over separation from Lord Krishna, his dearmost friend, but he consoled himself by remembering the transcendental words the Lord had sung to him. According to Srila Sridhara Swami, Arjuna remembered such verses of Gita. According to Srila Sridhara Swami, Arjuna remembered such verses from the Gita as, I am never manifest to the foolish and intelligent. For them I am covered by eternal creative potency Yogamaya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. Similarly, Srila Jiva Goswami has mentioned in the Gita verse, Mama evasyasi satyam te pratinne priyosime. You will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. He has also quoted from the Swargarohana Parva of the Mahabharata as follows. There Yudhishthira saw Lord Govinda as the absolute truth in his original personal form. He appeared just as Yudhishthira had seen him before, with all the same characteristics. He was glowing brilliantly with the effulgence coming from his own body, and he was surrounded by his transcendental weapons, the disc and so on, which appeared in their fearsome personified forms. O descendant of Kunti, Lord Madhusüdana was being worshipped by the effulgent hero Arjuna, who also appeared in his original form. When these two lions among men were worshipable by the other gods noticed the presence of Yudhishthira, they approached him with proper respect and offered him worship. Shloka number 22. Bandhunam nashtagothranam Arjuna saparayandham samparayikam hatanam karaya masa yata vadana purvashaha. Arjuna then saw to it that the funeral rites were properly carried out of the dead who had no remaining male family members. He executed the required ceremonies for each of the Yadus one after another. Arjuna executed the required ceremonies for each of the Yadu families, one after the other. Dvärakam harinat yaktam samudro plavayat khanat varjayatva maharaja Srimad Bhagavadalayam. As soon as Dvärakä was abandoned by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the ocean flooded it in all sides. O king, sparing only his palace. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that whereas the external manifestation of the Lord Krishna's abode was covered by the ocean, the Lord's eternal Dvärakas exists beyond the material universe and certainly beyond the material ocean. Dvärakä had been constructed by Vishwakarma, the architect of the Swargaloka, and the Sudharma assembly hall had been brought from heaven. In that city, there were many beautiful and splendors of residences of the aristocratic Yadu dynasty. And the most beautiful residence of all was that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Srila Jiva Goswami. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that whereas the external manifestations of the Lord's abode was covered by the ocean, the Lord's eternal Dvärakä exists beyond the material universe and certainly beyond the material ocean. Dvärakä had been constructed by Vishwakarma, the architect of the heaven, and the Sudharma assembly hall had been brought from the heaven. In that city, there were many beautiful and splendorous residences of the aristocratic Yadu dynasty, and the most beautiful residence of all was the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna's. Srila Jiva Goswami mentions that even in the modern age, people who live near the city of original Dvärakä sometimes catch a glimpse of it in the ocean. Ultimately, the Lord's associates and abode are eternal, and one who understands this is qualified to become fully Krishna conscious. Shloka number 24. Nityam sannihitas tatra Bhagavan Madhusüdana smrutya shesha shubharam sarvamangala mangalam Nitya sannihitas tatra Bhagavan Madhusüdana smrutya shesha shubharam sarvamangala mangalam. Lord Madhusüdana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is eternally present in Dvärakä. It is the most auspicious of all the auspicious places, and merely remembering it destroys all contamination. Sri Bala Vruddhana Daya Hata Sheshantananjaya Indraprastham Samavesha Vajram Tatra Brashechayat. Arjuna took the survivors of the Yadu dynasty, the women, children, and an old man to Indraprastha, where he installed Vajra as the ruler of the Yadus. Shrutva Savrududam Rajan Arjuna Trepidamaha Tvantu Vamshadaram Krutva Jagma Sarve Mahapatam. Hearing from Arjuna of the death of their friend, My dear king, your grandfathers established you as the maintainer of the dynasty and left to prepare for their departure from this world. Shukamarshi is telling Parikshit Maharaj, hearing from Arjuna of the death of their friend, my dear king, your grandfathers established you as the maintainer of the dynasty and left to prepare for their departure from this world. Yaetad devasya Vishnu karmani janmacha kirtayet pradaya martyaha sarva papye pramuchyate. A person who with faith engages in chanting the glories of these various pastimes and incarnation of Vishnu, the Lord of Lords, will gain liberation from all sins. The last sloka of the the 28th sloka of this chapter, Ittam Hare Bhagavato Ruchiravataraha Viryani Balacharitani Cha Shantamani Anyeta Cheha Chaitrani Gunam Manushyo Bra Bhakti Param Parama Parahamsagato Labhet. The all auspicious exploits of all attractive incarnation of Lord Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and also the pastimes he performed as a child are described in this Srimad Bhagavatam and in other scriptures. Anyone who clearly chants these descriptions of his pastimes will attain transcendental loving service unto Lord Krishna, who is the goal of all perfect sages. Thus, entirely purports of the humble servants of his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivinoda Prabhupada, to thus ends the purports of the humble servants of his divine grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to the 11th canto, 31st chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, entitled The Disappearance of Lord Sri Krishna Back to His Own Place, Vaikunta. The 11th canto was completed at the New Gokula South American Pilgrimage Site State, Sao Paulo, Brazil, on Friday, March 26, 1982. End of the 11th canto. Srimad Bhagavatam is compared to the ripened fruit of Vedic knowledge, also known as the Bhagavata Purana. This multi-volume work elaborates on the pastimes of Lord Krishna and his devotees and includes detailed descriptions of among the other phenomena, the process of creation and annihilation of the universe. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada considered the translation of the Bhagavatam his life's work. ಮೂವತ್ತೊಂದನೇ ಅಧ್ಯಾಯವು ಮುಗಿಯಿತು. ಇತಿ ಶ್ರೀಮದ್ ಭಾಗವತೆ ಮಹಾಪುರಾಣೆ ಪಾರಮಹಂಸ್ಯಾಂ ಸಂಹಿತಾಯಾಂ ಏಕಾದಶ ಸ್ಕಂದೆ ಏಕತ್ರಿಂಶೋಧ್ಯಾಯಃ. 11ನೇ ಹರಿ ಓಂ ತತ್ಸತ್ ಹರಿ ಓಂ ತತ್ಸತ್. ನಮೋಸ್ತು ಅನಂತಾಯ ಸಹಸ್ರಮೂರ್ತಯೇ ಸಹಸ್ರಪಾದಾಕ್ಷರಪಾದ ಸಹಸ್ರನಾಮ್ನೇ ಪುರುಷಾಶ್ರತೆ ಸಹಸ್ರಕೋಟಿ ಯುಗಧಾರಣೇ ನಮಃ. ಸಹಸ್ರಕೋಟಿ ಯುಗಧಾರಣೇ ನಮಃ. ಆಕಾಶಾತ್ ಪರಿತಂ ಯಥಾಗತ್ಸಾಗರಂ ಸರ್ವದೇವ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರಃ. ಶ್ರೀಕೇಶವಂ ಪ್ರಜತ್ಯೋ ನಮಃ. ಸರ್ವವೇದೇಶತ್ ಪುಣ್ಯಂ ಸರ್ವತೀರ್ಥೇಶು ಯತ್ಫಲಂ ತತ್ಫಲಂ ಪ್ರಾಪ್ತು ವಾಸನಾತ್ ವಾಸುದೇವಸ್ಯ ವಾಚ್ಯಂತೆ ಜಗತ್ರಯಂ ಸರ್ವಭೂತ ನಿವಾಸೋಸಿ ವಾಸುದೇವಮೃತೆ ಕಾಯೇನ ವಾಚಾ ಮನಸೇಂದ್ರಿಯರ್ವಾ ಬುದ್ಧ್ಯಾತ್ಮನಾ ವಾ ಪ್ರಕೃತೆ ಸ್ವಭಾವಾತ್ ಕರೋಮಿ ಅದ್ಯತ್ ಸಕಲಂ ಪರಸ್ಮೈ ನಾರಾಯಣಾಯೇತಿ ಸಮರ್ಪಯಾಮಿ. ನಾರಾಯಣಾಯೇತಿ ಸಮರ್ಪಯಾಮಿ. ನಾರಾಯಣಾಯೇತಿ ಸಮರ್ಪಯಾಮಿ. The next skanda, Dvadasha skanda, we will read only on Saturday and Sundays. Few weekends we will finish the rest of the Mahabhagavatam, keeping the daily activities for Sri Krishna Bhajan and virtual Darshana of Lord Sri Krishna from our temple Middlesborough. We are trying to plan that. I don't know how far it is possible. We will try my best. Thank you very much, all of you. Om Keshwaya Namaha, Om Narayana Namaha, Om Madhuvaya Namaha, Om Govindaya Namaha, Om Vishnuvaya Namaha, Matsudranaya Namaha, Trivikramaya Namaha, Vamanaya Namaha, Sridharaya Namaha, Rishikeshaya Namaha, Padmanabhaya Namaha, Damodaraya Namaha, Sankarshnaya Namaha, Vasudevaya Namaha, Pradyumnaya Namaha, Aniruddhaya Namaha, Purushottamaya Namaha, Adokshaya Namaha, Narasimhaya Namaha, Achyutaya Namaha, जनार्दनाय नमः, उपेन्द्राय नमः, हरे नमः, श्री कृष्णाय नमः, श्री कृष्णाय नमः, हरि ओम तत्सत।